Imagine this. The nation pauses to remember victory over Japan Day, the 80th anniversary of one of the most significant moments of World War II. King Charles and Queen Camilla attend the official ceremony at the Burma Star Memorial. They lay their wreath, bow their heads, and leave. Later that day, a second tribute appears, a wreath laid with quiet dignity, a letter written with the respect that only a veteran can truly understand. And it's signed Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. He honours the forgotten army, the soldiers of the Far East campaign. He honours his late grandfather, Prince Philip, who fought bravely in the Pacific. He honours those whose stories don't always make the history books, those whose sacrifices have been overshadowed by European campaigns. And instead of being praised for this act of remembrance, he's immediately accused of pulling a cynical PR stunt. But was it really? Or was it the act of a man who has lived the military life, lost friends in battle, carried wounded comrades, and knows the true cost of war in ways most of us never will? That's what we're diving deep into today. Because this story isn't just about a wreath, it's about respect, authenticity, and the impossible standards placed on one man who dared to choose his own path. Let's start with what actually happened, because the details matter, and they paint a very different picture than what the critics want you to believe. Harry didn't attend the official service. He didn't show up with cameras flashing, demanding attention, or trying to share the stage with the king. There were no grand entrances, no coordinated photo opportunities, no attempt to overshadow the official proceedings. Instead, his tribute was arranged after the service had concluded, quietly, respectfully, when the memorial was empty and the crowds had dispersed. This wasn't about being seen. It was about seeing, about bearing witness to history. His wreath carried no flashy message, no royal insignia demanding attention or recognition, just a simple, dignified note paying tribute to the forgotten army, those brave souls who served in Burma, Malaysia, and across the Pacific theatre, often fighting in brutal conditions that were overshadowed by the more documented European campaigns. And in his letter, Harry specifically remembered his grandfather, Prince Philip. Now, we can't forget, and this is crucial context, that Philip himself served with genuine distinction in the Pacific theatre. He was there during the Japanese surrender in Tokyo Bay aboard HMS Whelp. For Harry, this wasn't just symbolic pageantry. It was deeply personally meaningful. It was family history. It was honouring a man who taught him what service really means. This was veteran to veteran, soldier to soldier, grandfather to grandson. But here's what strikes me most. Harry could have easily made this about himself. He could have issued a press release, organised a media event, or timed it for maximum coverage. Instead, he chose the path of quiet dignity, the same dignity his grandfather would have appreciated. But that quiet, respectful gesture set off an absolute firestorm of criticism that reveals more about Harry's critics than it does about Harry himself. Shauna from the Vintage View unleashed what can only be described as a blistering, emotional critique. She called it, and I quote, a cynical PR stunt, and accused Harry of hijacking a sacred day for his own publicity. She admitted the subject was deeply personal. Her son's grandfather had fought in New Guinea, and she felt Harry's move was tone-deaf and disrespectful. Now, I want to acknowledge something here. Shauna's emotional connection to this day is real and valid. When you have family who served, who sacrificed, who maybe never came home or never talked about what they saw, these commemorative days aren't just calendar entries, they're sacred. I understand that passion, that protective instinct. But here's where her argument falls apart. She wasn't just angry at Harry. She went after the media, too blasting the Daily Mail, Yahoo News, Page 6 and others for running what she called sympathetic headlines like Prince Harry's secret tribute and a painful reminder of what he left behind. Her frustration reached a boiling point when she demanded, when is action going to be taken to rein him in? The monarchy isn't one family's plaything, it's an institution that belongs to us all. Powerful words, emotional words, words that reveal a fundamental misunderstanding of what actually happened. Because here's what Shauna and critics like her miss. Harry didn't try to make the monarchy his plaything. He stepped away from it. He gave up his HRH title, his patronages, his official role. He literally walked away from the institution she's so protective of. So when he lays a wreath, not as a working royal but as a private citizen, as a veteran, as a grandson, how is that hijacking anything? How is honouring veterans in a quiet, dignified way somehow an attack on the monarchy? The answer is, it isn't. But it reveals something uncomfortable for his critics, that Harry doesn't need a royal title to command respect, to make meaningful gestures, or to connect with people who matter. Because let's think about this logically for a moment. Let's play out the alternatives and see what would have happened. Scenario 1. If Harry had done nothing at all, what would the headline have been? Heartless Harry ignores VJ Day. Duke of Sussex turns his back on veterans. Harry forgets grandfather's sacrifice. The criticism would have been swift and brutal. Scenario 2. If he'd flown back to join the King's service, coordinating with the palace, standing alongside other royals, what then? Harry steals the spotlight from the King. Attention-seeking Duke crashes solemn ceremony. Harry makes VJ Day all about himself. Scenario 3. If he'd organised his own competing event, his own ceremony, his own gathering, Harry splits the nation's attention. Duke creates rival Remembrance service. Harry's desperate bid for relevance. And so he chose what any reasonable person would see as the most respectful path available. Not intruding on the King's event, not competing for attention, but still finding a way to honour veterans and his grandfather's memory. This is the impossible double bind Harry always finds himself in. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Every action, every gesture, every word is spun as self-serving, calculating, opportunistic, especially when it comes from the heart. And here's where we need to be brutally honest about who Harry actually is versus the caricature his critics have created. Harry isn't some ceremonial royal who waves at parades and calls it service. He's not someone who's play-acted at being a soldier for photo opportunities. This is a man who's worn the uniform in combat zones, served 2 tours in Afghanistan, walked alongside veterans through their darkest moments of injury and recovery, and built the Invictus Games from the ground up, creating something beautiful and meaningful from his own understanding of what warriors need. He's held the hands of wounded soldiers. He's attended funerals of friends who didn't make it home. He's seen what war really costs, not just in headlines, but in human faces, in shattered families, in dreams that died in foreign fields. If anyone has earned the right to lay a wreath, to speak for veterans, to honour the fallen, it's him. Not because of his title, but because of his service. Not because of his bloodline, but because of his bond with those who've served alongside him. Thankfully, not everyone joined the pile on. Some voices of reason cut through the noise. Historian Dr. Tessa Dunlop, someone who actually understands the historical context and significance of these moments, described Harry's act as, and I quote, a quiet reminder of the role he was forced to leave behind after stepping away from royal duties. Think about the weight of those words. Forced to leave behind. Because that's exactly what happened, isn't it? Harry didn't just walk away from ribbons and ceremonies, he walked away from meaningful work, from roles that gave him purpose, from connections that fed his soul. Dr. Dunlop went further, arguing that Harry's gesture proved he hasn't forgotten his deepest responsibilities, even if his own family seems to have forgotten him. And that's the sting that cuts deepest, isn't it? Harry has always been most alive, most authentically himself, when serving alongside the military community. It's where he found not just purpose, but peace. It's where the trauma of losing his mother, the pressure of royal expectations, the weight of public scrutiny, all of that faded away because he was doing work that mattered with people who understood service. Walking away from royal life meant leaving behind official roles tied to that service roles he genuinely loved, relationships that sustained him, a sense of mission that defined him. But gestures like this VJ Day tribute show he hasn't abandoned that calling. He hasn't forgotten who he is or what matters to him. He's just finding new ways to honour it, even when stripped of the platform, the resources, and the official recognition he once had. Online accounts like Tribes on X saw through the manufactured controversy, praising Harry not for a PR stunt, but for doing what he's always done, showing up for veterans however he can, wherever he can, whenever it matters, because that's who Harry is when you strip away all the noise, all the politics, all the palace drama. He's someone who shows up. Let's call out the elephant in the room, the blatant, undeniable double standard that governs how Harry's every action is judged. When King Charles lays a wreath, it's duty. When Harry lays a wreath, it's PR. When William issues a statement about veterans, it's loyalty and service. When Harry does it, it's opportunism and attention-seeking. When Kate appears at a memorial event, it's dignity and grace. When Harry honours his grandfather, it's calculated manipulation. It's literally the same action, honouring those who served, remembering those who sacrificed, showing respect for history and family. But it's judged by completely different rules, rules that seem specifically designed to paint Harry in the worst possible light, regardless of his intentions or actions. And here's what's most telling. The veterans Harry honours, the soldiers he's served alongside, the wounded warriors whose lives he's touched through Invictus Games, they don't care about palace politics. They don't care about tabloid headlines or royal protocols or who's in favour this week. They care about respect. They care about being remembered. They care about being seen, being valued, being honoured for their sacrifice. And in that sense, the only sense that truly matters, Harry has done exactly what needed to be done. He showed up, he remembered, he honoured, he bore witness. The rest is just noise. At the heart of this entire controversy, Harry's tribute wasn't about optics or headlines or royal drama. It was about something far more fundamental and far more important: remembrance. Remembrance for men like his grandfather, Prince Philip, who served with honour when it mattered most. Remembrance for those who fought in jungles and on islands and in seas thousands of miles from home, facing an enemy that showed no mercy. Remembrance for the forgotten army who sacrificed everything and were rarely thanked, rarely celebrated, rarely given the recognition they deserved. And in making that quiet tribute, Harry reminds us who he really is beneath all the controversy, all the speculation, all the manufactured drama. Not just a former royal, not just a public figure, not just a celebrity, but a soldier who knows the weight of service and the pain of loss. A man who understands that some things are bigger than politics, bigger than family feuds, bigger than personal grievances. Critics can shout PR stunt all they want. They can question his motives, dissect his timing, analyse his strategy. But here's the reality that no amount of criticism can change. Harry showed up. When it mattered, when nobody was watching, when there was nothing to gain, he showed up. He remembered, he honoured, he bore witness to history and sacrifice and service. And maybe, just maybe, that's what unsettles his critics most. Because in that quiet act, stripped of ceremony and pageantry and official blessing, Harry demonstrated a kind of authenticity, a kind of genuine connection to what matters, that cuts through all the noise. He showed that you don't need a title to serve. You don't need permission to remember. You don't need royal approval to honour those who gave everything. You just need to show up, and Harry always has. Thank you for watching Meghan and Harry Tales. What do you think? Was Harry's tribute a heartfelt act of remembrance, or do you buy into the cynical PR stunt narrative? I genuinely want to hear your thoughts in the comments, but keep it respectful, because this is about honouring veterans and those who've served. If you see through the manufactured controversy and recognise authentic respect when you see it, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe and share this video with others who value substance over spin. I'm Adrian, and this has been Meghan and Harry Tales. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most powerful gestures are the quietest ones.